Hello. I was in the back talking to them, and I realized, shucks, I got to run out. What a fun day it's been so far. I'm going to take what you've heard and try to show an application and take it one level further, which is, I will sound very idealistic and I will sound a little naive, but I will tell you, I am a war zone. I was a war zone correspondent. I've seen the worst of conflict. I've had death threats. I've been tear gassed. Blah blah blah. I'm older than I look. So, so what I will show you now is how do we take all of this technology, the reputation, the content, how do we take all of that and actually move our societies to action? That's what I'm interested in, because this is my 30th year as a journalist. I told you I was older than I look. 20 of those years I was running Southeast Asia for CNN, and 10 in Jakarta, 10 in Manila. So this is what I'm interested in, is what exactly, oh, sorry, wrong. So this is Rappler. Let me start with Rappler first. I was going to jump into the ideas, but I'm a journalist. I've been a journalist, but this technology empowers us in ways that I never would have thought possible 20 years ago. And it starts here, right? This is really always was just what we used to do, inform. We threw stories. When I was working for CNN, it would mean I threw it into a black hole and didn't see it come back. Now we can engage, and you'll see some of how we do that. And when you engage, you throw a challenge to your community, which empowers your community, and then you bring it back. We do a ton of different things across. Any journalist does this now. It's not just what you read. It's not just on your computer. It's in your pocket. It's on the wall. It's everywhere, and you can do it. So you start with credible news, but you on the ground, you look at advertising. I think advertising is moving out of interruption. We're beyond that, and you've heard this yesterday, and I'll show you more instances of it. Everything is converging. So are we journalists, ad agencies, crowdsourcing? You'll see. And AGOS is civic engagement. That is our disaster risk reduction platform, where we're working with Patrick. We're I think the Philippines is the petri dish. It's the laboratory because it is so vibrant on social media. This is the way I think about it now. This is what I wanted to start with. The top of it is social media, right? That's the tweet that you see, but then everything else goes through. Now, the last part is what I did for 20 years is terrorism. If you know about the 9/11 hijackers in Southeast Asia, those were my stories. So I followed, the ideas from Rappler came out of doing counterterrorism. In 2011, we mapped, I was working at Core Lab at the Naval Postgraduate School, and we mapped how terrorism spread from Afghanistan to Southeast Asia. How does it do it? Well, I compressed it a little bit. If you look at social media carries an emotion. The emotion is what spreads through our networks. And whether it's physical networks, what are our physical networks? They are families and friends. What is social media? Our families and friends on steroids without boundaries of time and space, right? So networks, physical and virtual. So emotion travels, so this carries an emotion that travels through the networks, and those networks can influence behavior. Advertisers have known that for a long time, but here's now, you've seen the maps that Roland, I think, showed you what the internet looked like yesterday. Here's the way I look at it. How do things spread? Because if you're a journalist, you don't want to tell your story to only one person. You want millions, right? So how do you spread? Let's look at social networks. If you were to look at this, you would think that number 10 is the most connected, and you just want to get number 10. But if you only tell number 10, there are limits to where the information goes, and those natural limits are here. You'll see it. It stops. Right? That's the first degree. And then here, you see the other networks that you want. So if you want to spread it, a rule called the 3 degrees of influence rule, it's in a book called Connected. 2 professors working with Harvard in 2007 wrote about how things spread through 3 degrees. An emotion like loneliness. If I'm feeling lonely, my friend has a 54% chance of feeling lonely because I do. My friend's friend, the 2nd degree, has a 25% chance of feeling lonely because I do. And my friend's friend's friend, the 3rd degree, has a 15% chance of feeling lonely because I do. It's almost a 2-3 generation study in Framingham, Massachusetts. They crunched the data, and this is what they came out with. And what's interesting is that it's something we kind of have always known. Smile and the world smiles with you. If I smile at you, you smile back, and you wind up passing that on. It's like a virus in a negative way. I look at terrorism as a jihadi virus with an I, right? So if I wanted to spread something, I hit number 10, I will hit 17, and I will hit 2, and I will hit at least 4 different social networks. Why? Because number 17 will automatically hit his network plus whatever is here, and number 2 will hit this plus whatever else is here. Second and third degree, the way you spread it. I don't know, there are many familiar faces here, but it's going to be the second and third degree that will spread it further, not the echo chamber that is your first. So that's an interesting idea, right? This is Rappler. Our core is still the same, professional journalism. We push technology into it, and then the crowd. And the crowd is interesting because when you do that, you do lose control, but you get a lot of these other things that you can do. So I look at this as both content creation that goes through, so this is content creation. We do social media engagement that pushes it out. That social media engagement triggers crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing triggers data, every single thing that they do, we can gather, and then we push it right back into the mix. So that's the platform that is Rappler. It's interesting. It is also our business model. So if you think about it as what we sell, this is our content creation. You might call it native advertising or content marketing. Clearly labeled, so there are no issues with journalism. Social media engagement, crowdsourcing, and big data. That's part of our monetary model. Technology, just these 2 slides on how fast technology is changing, and not just in the internet space, right? Freelancer Willix told us about software. Well, hardware also is changing so fast. Why? As journalists, we got to get rid of all the vertical silos in every organization, because I think the company that will win, the ideas that win, cuts across. And that's part of what we did by just first eliminating physical walls. The second, this was the end of 2011, a camera that I used to buy for CNN or for ABS-CBN, Sony Ikegami, $35,000. And yet, where's my iPhone? I left it there. That HD quality camera, HD quality, it is free in the Philippines with a plan, so it's free, and that's exactly what she's using. And all we did, this was before off-the-shelf technology came out that actually put a frame around it. We put it on a tripod. We built this metal casing, and there's her tripod, and we added other things that made the quality of it as good as a $35,000 camera. There's stuff like that happening everywhere. And then here's the last part. I think JJ might say this, but anytime there's something new, people will laugh at you, and they did in the Philippines. Here's another one of we hired 20-somethings because they are digital natives, but we set the direction. So here she is talking to her iPhone. Here are my former cameramen. I used to run the largest TV network in the Philippines, and they're laughing at her. And the person who took this photo is one of our top anchors in the Philippines. And she sent it to me. She said, look, pinagtatawanan. They're laughing at IE. They're laughing at the reporter. They laughed maybe for about 3 weeks, and then when they realized that she can actually take this video, punch a button, and it's posted, and they have to wait 4 hours before they can actually get through traffic to the network, edit their pieces before they can broadcast. So it's okay. Bring it on. Laugh. Here's another part of the hardware, not software. An outside broadcasting van, OB van. To go live, you need to have a generator, you need to have a switcher, you need to have cameras. They all unfold in that. That costs up to $1 million if you're buying it from the Philippines. If you buy in bulk, which I did, you maybe can bring it down to $800,000. We bought 6 for the largest network, right? This one, we built $100,000. Right? So again, why is that interesting? It's an IP satellite van. Imagine for areas, we're not Facebook, we're not Google, but imagine for areas that don't have broadband, that don't have connectivity. Like, This is behind the city hall where Typhoon Haiyan hit in Tacloban. Like this part, when there was absolutely no connectivity, the truck was parked there, giving satellite broadband connectivity to the people who were there. And the excess capacity of the generator, the people who had been hit by the typhoon because there was no electricity, they would just plug in, and it actually helped us because you can't have too much excess on your generator. It is a brave new world. I mean, that's kind of something that we've been talking about the last 2 days. And every time I come, I always think, wow, it is just something we cannot yet imagine. We're only at the beginning. And if you look here, everything, we've talked about creative destruction, but here I am. I still report for CNN every now and then, but I'm doing it off of my computer, and they're spending a ton of money on satellite broadcasting. How do these two things converge now? Right? That will happen, and it will be cheaper, faster. It'll be interesting. So where does that go, and what can you get? The easiest, let's go to, I talked a bit about social media, crowdsourcing. The easiest crowdsourcing on Rappler, and this was partly because the Philippines and Indonesia, the two countries we're in right now, the Philippines median age is 23 years old, Indonesia is 22, 23 also. You're talking about collectively 350 million people, 60% of ASEAN. In the Philippines, we patented this user engagement model. Every story has a mood meter. And why? Because up to 80% of how we make decisions in our lives is not based on what we think. We think it's what we think, but it is based on how we feel. So every story, I'll quote you a statistic that I found funny. In November 2013, Gallup came out with a poll that said that the most emotional country in the world is the Philippines. Bow. The least emotional is Singapore. It's Singapore. So anyway, emotions are important. And even though I spent most of my career fighting it, you click how you feel. When you click how you feel, it's aggregated by the mood navigator, the middle of the front page. It crowdsources the mood of the day, and it gives you the top 10 stories. You can navigate the site by that. And then you can then take all that data and look at the month in moods, the year in moods. We had our third birthday in January, but this was our midterm elections in the Philippines. May 1, May 31. 77% happy. And what's interesting is that Filipinos were very happy until here. That's election day. And they were actually happy until around 7:30 at night when the results were coming in, and they started coming in too slowly. So there was a rush, and then it became slow, and then the votes for angry piled up. This is when the senators were announced, and you can see. So you can see behavior, right? All of this that's kind of where we're headed. It's a fantastic thing. This is not a Rorschach test, and if you were here last year, you'll see this is actually, it's not a survey, it's behavior. Millions of tweets of people in different parts of the world in crisis. March 2011 in Japan, the Fukushima, the earthquake, the tsunami, right? That's the Japanese behave the same way Filipinos or Indonesians or Singaporeans behave when they're caught in crisis. They form hubs around sources of information. This is 6 months before the last U.S. presidential elections, the one that showed you millions of tweets by Americans that shows you exactly how divided they were between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, right? We don't have to guess. This is what a revolution looks like, #Egypt. And this is 16 months into the civil war between President Bashar al-Assad and the rebels in Syria. I thought, if this looks like this, does that mean it's a revolution? I mean, there are all these other questions that I know we are asking. I go to the Philippines. This is the very first internet-driven, peer-to-peer protest in the Philippines. And it happened in August of 2013. One Facebook post took 7 days to get these people out into the Luneta Park. It's a national park in the Philippines. And there were no leaders, which meant if you're walking through the protest, it was really boring. Nobody was telling you where to go, what to do, who to listen to. Internet, peer-to-peer driven, right? Got the people there, but it looked like this when you map it, right? Messy. So what do journalists do? Our job, I think, is to give people information that will help them coalesce communities of action. So when you think about it like that, then it becomes easier. This is January, 1 hour after the Pope landed in Manila. And what's interesting is you can see the difference between, whoop, it won't go back, between this, messy, and this, right? There are communities talking. And the sizes of the circles are based on, the social network word is eigenvector centrality, but it's similar to Google PageRank. The larger the circle, the more influential you are. So this can kind of go with our last, it's not just reputation, and it is not the number of followers alone. It is the number of followers, reputation, and who you know. Who follows you, right? Like in the real world, who you know matters. And that's part of the reason these accounts are that way. This is a close-up of it, and I just want to show you, ABS was my old network, the largest in the Philippines. I managed 1,000 journalists during that time. We started with 12. And that's the asymmetry of the world now. You don't need to have a lot of money or a lot of people to have impact. And that is what's very cool for me. Oops. let's go. Okay, so now thanks, Maria. Maria is in the back. I want to show you our map, our community, right? So this is something that we do. I hope it will be the tail that wags the journalism dog, because I think technology is the future of journalism. Let's put in our hashtag. I hope you've been tweeting. Hashtag CSW, Global 15. And then let's just click it. Nope, not packages. Just click that. Sorry, there you go. So now what it'll do is it'll take the last 500 tweets and it'll put the map and show our relationships to each other. Remember, I come from counterterrorism. And the idea for this really came out of, if you walk into a neighborhood, you're going to be able to see the leaders, both the natural leaders and the informal and formal leaders. Okay, now zoom in. And then pull it down, and then let's take a look at, let's go ahead and click one or two. Click the larger circles that you can see, and let's see who they are. Sean. Okay, who is Sean talking to? Let's go to the other, click another one that Sean is talking to. Go ahead. You can also drag the whole thing down. Oh, that's a smaller one. Jackie. The big one, that's Sean. She likes Maria Catapult, so this was probably still from yesterday. Let's click this. Oh, go ahead, click that. Who is that? I'd love to know. JJ. Well, that makes sense, right? And who is this? Because this is also connected to JJ. Airbnb. Well, so, right, you can zoom in and you can actually take it apart. And again, in counterterrorism, what you wind up doing is once you figure out the nodes that are connected to each other, then you know who are the force multipliers. And when you have the force multipliers, then you know who you need to be talking to, correct? They're the ones. And then you look second degree, first degree, second degree, and third degree. Okay, let's go back. You can play with it. This is actually just a tool that we put. It's a demo tool, but let's go back to the slide presentation. So this is reach. This is what, again, if you're a journalist, I want to see my community. And so we built it. It's not that hard. You don't have to be a tech genius to build it. Okay, so next slide. Next slide, so that's reach. So this is, let's click again, crowdsourcing. So let's look at some of the crowdsourcing. Oh, no, click, add, I can do it now. Okay, so this is show the Pope, hashtag show the Pope. When the Pope landed, we were like, show the Pope, the Philippines, what do you want? So they all just pushed it up and we created a mosaic, the Pope could click, and it's actually really cool. There was no other purpose other than to show the Pope. And it worked. And it was quite fun. Commercial. This is where I was trying to understand what crowdsourcing platforms can do, because I think that's kind of what we do now. This is with Pantene, P&G. Pantene is P&G, right? Yes, Pantene is P&G. And what we did is they basically said they're gender stereotypes we want to bust. And we're going to have an ad. We want you to help put substance in it and program content. You have free reign in what you want to do with the content. So we did. And we started it, and the results have been really, really incredible. Because this little thing that we started in the Philippines actually wound up going global. And let me show you the stats on that. Here we go. So this is when we had an on-the-ground forum, and that sparked this. And how did it happen by country? You can take it apart. The Philippines, where are you? Here. So here's the spike. We live streamed, live tweeted, live blogged, and that created ripples that were picked up globally. And the ripples were other news organizations picking it up. This big spike that you see is the United States, and that was when Sheryl Sandberg posted it on her Facebook wall, which then rippled even further, right? So something that started, again, connecting the world in ways that could never have happened before. It can have a global ripple, and it can be commercial. So if we talked about FMCGs yesterday, the 2 FMCGs, this is now Unilever, crowdsourcing to find the people who do more. And this is actually also for a brand, but what's interesting, let me play this for you for a little bit.
An artist to a chef, to a one-legged swimmer who turned an accident into a leap of faith. But they are all bound by a single passion. They are the people who do more in a country where more is needed every day. In 2013, Rexona decided to go further in its campaign philosophy, to move with courage, to reach impossible heights, and to celebrate the men and women who broke past barriers to win and inspire. In a move to celebrate giving back beyond what is expected, a list of achievers were nominated, then vetted by a panel of experts.
Crowdsourced
24
nominations,
athletes,
right?
artists, entrepreneurs, luminaries, civil servants, digital trailblazers, innovators, and global activists were selected, then launched in a multimedia campaign in partnership with Rappler, the Philippines' first social media news network. Through the Do More Awards, the online world voted on their new generation of heroes. The campaign hit a total of more than 217 million online impressions, with more than 40,000 votes, outperforming even the national beauty pageant and raising public consciousness on the worth of passionate endeavor. They are the people who do more, in a country where inspiration has done more to help more, every day.
It's fun. It's something I would have wanted to do anyway, and it works in that sense. Okay, that's the commercial part. Let me show you the part I love best, because we talked about collaborative cities. The Philippines has an average of 20 typhoons every year. 8 of the 10 most vulnerable cities in the world are in my country. I'm panicking. And part of what we wanted to do was to create a platform where we can take this engaged community, bottom-up civic engagement, and put it with top-down government workflows. And this is what we came up with. We worked with Patrick Meyer. Again, I kind of say we're a petri dish for him, because we take his code and we test it. and the artificial intelligence that he was talking about yesterday, what we do is the actual platform, reporting platform. If you need help, you can ask for help on SMS. You can ask for help on Twitter using a hashtag. We've spent 2.5 years training our community to use hashtags. Hashtag Chadeng PH, always the name of the typhoon plus the PH, hashtag rescue PH if you need help. And then that is automatically pulled down using QRCI's data, their algorithms. We have volunteers work for about 4 hours or so mapping, and then after they map, they're then able to let the algorithm follow. It's really cool, and it's still a work in process. But 1 month before Haiyan, here's the video. Everything you will see in this 1-minute video is crowdsourced, from the video of the typhoon to the reactions. And he's standing on the roof of his house, right? And he sent us this on social media, the video. Green is text, SMS, blue is Twitter. guy who's clicking is a first responder. We partnered with the Red Cross, with the Office of Civil Defense, the Climate Change Commission. It's an alphabet soup of partnerships. It's a collaborative effort from the ground up. And what's interesting with it is that a month after that, this is what Haiyan looked like from outer space. So we were still working on connections, on telcos, right? And this is what happened. The connections died. And this was what it looked like on the ground. The looting began a day later. So all of our crowdsourcing efforts, we actually had a rescue map. People started posting on the crowdsourcing map, looking for their families, looking for the people they love. And then we did a crowdsourcing. Can you get across this bridge? You know, we did a map of the Philippines. Crowdsource where there is electricity. Crowdsource where roads are broken. And we shared that with the government. And even the relief centers, the government sent us a list. We helped map it. It's an incredible thing. But this is the part I love best. The need at that time was finding the people they loved. So Google has Person Finder, and you can't go inside Google's Person Finder because of privacy issues. Facebook has a facial recognition system. So we called on both of our partners, and both of them are our partners, and Google opened the back end of Person Finder so we could put things in there. And then on Facebook, they sent coders to the Philippines to help us essentially build something where when we posted the photo, because we had that satellite van on the ground, and we had a reporter who actually took the photos of people, we uploaded it simultaneously on our site, on Facebook, on Google, and Facebook's facial recognition system lets you know when you know somebody who knows that person, and helps find people that way. So this is something that we're going to continue doing. This is what Agos looks like today, and this is one of the first times where I started to see the community coming together on it. This was last year, and you can see Marikina DRRM is a local city government, a disaster risk reduction management unit. They're the ones who are actually talking to them. This one is interesting. May babaeng nagle-labor sa ibabaw ng bubong. There's a woman giving birth on top. She's in labor on top of the roof. And you can see a community coming together. Her name is posted with a cell phone. This came through Twitter. And then here, Voltaire says, rescued by the Philippine Red Cross. We've seen this now. We roll it out for every time. But I want to show you what the actual map looks like very quickly. Let's go back to... What was interesting about this is we just built a tech platform, and now the government is using it. Of course, what do? We have to train the government in how to use social media. So what's happening? I divided our team. The journalists are running after government, but the Move PH, our civic engagement arm, is going after them. So let's just, you can see, you can click, right? So this just aggregates them. You click anyone, click number 6. Go ahead and click that. Let's see, Marinduque is an island. Let's click this. Oh, right, you can see. But let's pull down data before we go down. So what I like about this is that here, if you can open this, Maria. Oh, so you want to see. So you can actually see. This was the last one, hashtag ChedengPH. This is still data from there. And you can see people posting it. This is the typhoon that became super typhoon and then went away. Can you just pull the data down here? Click this one. Here, Maria. Up here, up on top, data. Yes, click. Now let's pull flood-prone areas, this one first. So you can overlay data, click here, there. Go ahead, click that, this one here. Yeah, great. And then when you overlay that, let's also overlay the path of the typhoon here, this one. And hopefully that'll pull us out. So this is the path of the typhoon. Go in, zoom into the map. You can drag it over. Yeah. So that now it'll show us this is the purple or flood-prone areas. And then you can zoom in. This is great for the Office of Civil Defense, where we have citizens volunteering with the Office of Civil Defense, but not so great if you only have a feature phone, right? So one of the things that we're working on now, we're working with internet.org, which is giving Facebook for free and giving things like this for free. So we're trying to strip it so we can try to figure out how to give information. Okay, this is great stuff, and it's helping, and I can see it. Let me end. Let's go back to the presentation, and I have maybe one more slide left. Let's go to the. I have it, but okay. So why don't I just end with this? The very first successful instance where, because disaster risk reduction is 3 phases. You have preparations, you have the actual event itself where you need real-time reporting. And real-time reporting, you know, when you leave it to a government, even Singapore takes time. In the Philippines, it took 2 weeks before the information from the ground filters to the national level and national level releases it. Imagine now you have the crowd doing it, and the crowd is both helping the government and pressuring government because everything is transparent. It is a phenomenally wonderful world to be a journalist. I'll leave you with this 1-minute video that outlines one, I think it was our very first successful one. It's called Typhoon Glenda. Typhoon Glenda, known internationally as Ramasun, intensifies as it moves closer to the Bicol Samar area Tuesday. Crowd. This is the crowd, right? They're just posting. This is the before. Photos better than newsgroups. Government agencies who also are involved in political. This is after. It's a really amazing world today, and we're still investigative journalists, but we can do more. I sound like do more. You know, we can really do more, and I'm finding this a phenomenal time to work with our communities on the things that really matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My interest in this is coming from Keystone Accountability, which looks at long-term relief efforts and getting feedback from the constituents. And so what you're doing with the social media here is fabulous. Are you looking at, and what I'm trying to understand is how over time this could be incorporated into something like constituent voice. But then, to me, what's really interesting is the reduction of the latency or the delay in everything for first responders. You're making your data available right now to governments. What about the aid agencies? Are you being open with your data, or is it only going to the government? So how do we get so that there can be course correction? My interest is in improving effectiveness. We all think we're doing a lot of great things, but sometimes when we hear back, we get different input. And so I'm wondering how that's actually working for you.
And it's a great question. So there are 3 answers to it. The first is, it's got to be community-based, right? We're only talking community in the virtual world, but if it's not anchored on community on the ground, then you don't really have anything. And what we're doing is actually working with the interior and local government units, the DSWD. They're asking for specific areas that are vulnerable, and we're doing training with them. Again, it's not the journalists that are doing it, but our civic engagement arm. So there's that working for both immediate, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. The medium-term is that every house in a vulnerable area, household should know where their where their evacuation center is. We have a gold standard in the Philippines. It's the province of Albay. And in there, if you walk into a house, you'll see right on the door exact directions to go to where they are. And they've even assigned things like who's going to cook the first night, who's going to bring the food. We're not as good as what I saw this when I was a reporter in Japan during the earthquake drills. I would love to see something that good. So there's the first one, which is community and real world action, right? And then where we help is with the information. We work with the UN, with UN OCHA. So Patrick's group, the Standby Task Force and the Micromappers, they're great because when we fall asleep, they take over. But at the same time, when in our area, we know our cities, our houses, we know it better than anyone else. So they will bring in Standby Task Forces, thousands of people, but the Philippines is 100 million people. So the crowdsourcing when it happens to us is huge. And, again, if in 2010 ComScore called the Philippines the social media capital of the world, Indonesia I think in 2012 became the social media capital of the world. Brazil has at different times taken it over, but it's an overheated space where people want to do something. So the second one is, yes, we work with other groups outside, but I find that the UN, it's a cluster system, but it moves very slowly. I move news time, and disasters move faster than news time. So we work all together, all the time. I've never spent as much time in UN meetings as I have now, nor have I worked with DSWD in the same way. And always, my role is to say, can we do it now? Now. But I also understand, this is where it helps to be old enough, that you need to have top-down control so that you can actually see in the long term. And I think what's happened now, in the Philippines at least, is the UN has introduced a cluster model. And that's working, and the government has adopted the cluster model, but it's still a work in progress, very much a work in progress. And if anyone has great ideas, we're always looking for it, because government can't do it alone, and crowdsourcing is, for disasters, the best way. And you must prepare beforehand. I say this all the time. I was doing a training for the Armed Forces of the Philippines Sunday, and I was saying the time for us to be doing this is when the sun is shining. So I don't know if that's the last part, is that there are existing processes, but the same way that for a company, those existing processes that made that company succeed are the very same processes that will prevent the company from innovating. We need to be able to do both. We need to be able to let go of some control so that we can move faster, and trust, there's that word again, and trust that the private sector, if they can see this open platform, if they are there, that they will also come and help. I was a very cynical journalist, and somehow working in this area now is actually making me realize people are good. People will do good things. You just have to give them a chance and organize a little bit better in a whole different way from top down.
Great.
Does that answer?
Thank
One
you.
more question?
One more question. Let's have one more question, and we'll go for lunch.
I'll keep it short because you're hungry. Sorry.
Thank you, Maria, for your presentation. I don't think I have a question, but I would like to share a feeling and emotion with you. And the question for us all, what's the real role of the crowd economy, the crowd everything, in terms of regenerating the system? Because we are talking a lot on acting over the consequences of the things that are happening, and what kind of thing we can do to attack the causes of the system. And I think this is my reflection, seeing your presentation, seeing Patrick's presentation. Are we really aware of what's going on?
We're born the same day, so we have an instant affinity to each other. But I love the question, and I think so. Let me tell you why we built Rappler and why all of these things are just granular parts of the main goal. I live in a country where institutions are weak, and harnessing the bottom of the pyramid, harnessing the crowd to help build institutions bottom up is really the end goal that we're trying to do. And I think the same thing can happen in Indonesia. The only way you will topple, sorry, I don't mean to use the word topple too hard, but the only way we will change power structures that have been entrenched perhaps for the wrong reason, oligarchic power structures, is to actually take the zeitgeist, take the bottom of the pyramid and push bottom up and build institutions together. The Philippines, let me just zoom in again on the Philippines the last time, which is we have a feudal power structure that has kept power in the hands of people with power. Oligarchic structure, 8 families have owned a lot of the things. This is changing, and the families who are there understand that they need to share the wealth because they will get more powerful as more of the country comes up. So the big picture is, I think, in the same way, I'm not the first to say this, Mark Zuckerberg said this, a more transparent world actually can help change that. Now I'm going to sound overly naive and optimistic, but you can see it. I can see it in the Philippines. We're 3 years old, and I can see that we've had an impact that is far beyond what this small number of people should have, and it is because of technology. So I think crowdsourcing is the future in a whole different way, aside from commerce. You can make money at it, but we can also build the societies of the future with this. Our political organization. I'll give you one last thing. Sorry, ISIS. Remember, ISIS is using it better than everyone else. So guys, if you're in government or if you're in the private sector, do more. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much.